I recently had a talk with my wife of 11 years, and sadly, it ended with her in tears. This reminded me of a similar situation 3 years ago when I almost lost my job. Back then, my wife, Kate, also known as Catherine, was so upset at the thought of me missing our anniversary that she insisted I come home. Fast forward to today, and now it's her who won't be there. On our anniversary, I didn't say anything to change her mind. Despite this, the past 12 years have been the happiest of my life. When I first met Kate, she was 24 and just starting her career in sales. She visited our architectural firm to convince us to advertise in fancy magazines, which we couldn't afford at the time. In the crowd, I couldn't help but notice, and she had black hair, and I couldn't help but notice her. After talking about it with my partner, he helped me get her attention long enough to ask her out. After our first meeting, she confessed that she knew we couldn't pay for her services. But I fell deeply in love with her anyway. Our relationship developed over 6 months, and eventually, she moved in with me for another 6. I met an enchanting woman with black hair. After talking about it with my partner, he helped me get her attention long enough to ask her out. After our first meeting, she confessed that she knew we couldn't pay for her services. Even so, I fell deeply in love with her. Our relationship developed over 6 months, and eventually, she moved in with me for another 6 months as she transitioned from a nomadic lifestyle to a stable office job. 4 months later, we tied the knot and became husband and wife. Every day, I still feel like the luckiest person alive for persuading her to marry me. With a sense of urgency, I dialed my boss's number once more. I've been with the company since the beginning, when Craig first started the company. After months of transitioning from a nomadic lifestyle to a stable office job, we tied the knot and became husband and wife. I still feel like the luckiest person alive for persuading her to marry me. With a sense of urgency, I dialed my boss's number once more. I've been with the company since the beginning, when Craig first started it. Our small team of designers, just 4 of us, achieved remarkable success by reducing production time in various fields. Craig, I know you're there. Please answer. I pleaded into the phone. Finally, I heard his voice on the other end. Dan, I'm really busy right now, he replied shortly, deciding to keep it brief. Well, I'm leaving right now and won't be back until Monday. A team of 4 designers, including Craig, achieved great success by cutting down on production time in various areas. Craig, I know you're there. Please answer. I finally got through to him on the phone. Dan, I'm really busy right now. I understand, I'll be brief. I'm heading out right now, not back until Monday. Where are you going? I'm going to celebrate my anniversary with my wife. Have a good trip, and don't forget to knock before entering. I'll remember that. You always make me laugh. You know I hear that a lot, not from those who really know you. Sorry. He asked, where are you going? I replied, I'm going to celebrate my anniversary with my wife. I'll be back on Monday. Have a good trip, and don't forget to knock before entering. I chuckled and replied, you always manage to make me laugh. He responded, you know I hear that a lot, not from those who really know you. I apologized, I'm sorry, but ever since they brought this guy in to run Kate's department, there's been tension in our house. Maybe a break at the hotel will help diffuse the situation. I assumed, well, it certainly won't hurt. Just do me a favor, when you're seeking adventure, remember me. Craig grinned, deal. See you on Monday. I didn't hang up right away, but I asked Craig's secretary, Rosa, for she knew how to sort things out, and I needed a plane ticket. After the conversation with her, I headed home to pack. While packing my suitcase, the phone rang. You have 45 minutes to get to the airport for security. The ticket is waiting for you at the counter in your name. Rose informed me she'd secured a return flight for me on Sunday afternoon at 1:30 p.m. Rose told me she'd gotten us a return flight for Sunday at 1:30, but there weren't any rooms available at Kate's hotel, so she booked us 2 blocks away. She said, have a safe trip, see you on Monday. I rushed to the bathroom to grab my shaving kit, packed it quickly, and did a quick check of the room, even turning off the coffee maker, which was unusual for me. Then I hurried to the car. Over the past 15 years, I've discovered several shortcuts that help me reach my destination faster. Despite my high speed, I made it to the flight with plenty of time to spare after registration, security, and boarding. We finally got on the plane. I was comfortably seated, put on my headphones, and played some music. I'm a nervous flyer, and music helps me relax and stay calm. 3 hours into the flight, I was suddenly awakened from a pleasant dream about Kate and me by a gentle tap on my shoulder. I had fallen asleep, which wasn't surprising, given my recent lack of sleep at night. Some of it was due to work stress. Kate and I had been going through a rough patch in our relationship for the past few months. For more than 2 months, she had been keeping her distance, not letting me get close. It all started when she told I heard that a colleague from another department got a promotion and is taking over her old job. She said on showing that decision was wrong, and she's been working hard to prove she's worth it. For the first 2 weeks, she came home exhausted, talking about ways to outshine Mr. Paul Reynolds. But over time, her determination waned, and after a couple of weeks, she mentioned they'd started working together. I started getting anxious as their joint mission to win a big client approached. I even started thinking about the possibility of a romantic relationship between them, but Kate I heard that a colleague from another department got a promotion and took over her old job. She was determined to prove that this was a bad idea and worked hard to show her worth. For the first 2 weeks, she came home exhausted, talking about ways to outshine Mr. Paul Reynolds. But over time, her determination waned, and after a couple of weeks, she mentioned that they had started working together. I became increasingly anxious as their joint mission to win a big client approached. I thought about a possible romantic relationship between them, but Kate after checking out the busy street, I figured I could walk to my destination, so I followed the directions the receptionist gave. Meth route was easy, and I made sure to remember the charming restaurant the taxi driver mentioned, which was just a few steps from her hotel. Also, when I got out of the taxi, I left the driver a generous tip at $5.50. I went into the hotel lobby and stood in line at one of the reception desks. I exchanged a smile with a woman who motioned for me to come forward. "Hello," I greeted her warmly. "My name is Dan Cardiff. I'd like to know if my wife, Catherine Cardiff, is in her room right now." "If so," I said, "I'd like to know if my wife, Catherine Cardiff, is in her room right now. If she is, I'd appreciate the chance to talk to her." "Catherine Cardiff, you said?" She double-checked, taking a moment to consult her notes. "Yes, she's a guest here. Give me a minute to check if she's in her room." With that, she dialed the room number. After a while, she turned to me with an "I'd love to chat with her." "Catherine Cardiff, you said?" She double-checked, taking a moment to look at her notes. "Yeah, she's a guest here. Let me check if she's in her room." With that, she dialed the room number. After a while, she turned to me with an apologetic tone. "Sorry, sir, but there was no answer. Would you like to leave a message?" "Not right now," I replied, a hint of disappointment in my voice. I was hoping to surprise her. "We have an anniversary tomorrow. I'd be very grateful if you didn't mention our conversation." "No problem, sir," she replied. "I assure you," she reassured me. I didn't catch everything she said. "Wish you a wonderful day tomorrow, sir," the woman added politely. "Thanks. I'm thinking about going to a restaurant. Maybe luck will be on my side." "Good night," I responded. "Good luck." I said goodbye and started heading to the far end of the lobby. I saw a noisy hall packed with people doing all kinds of things, working, serving, sitting, eating. It was pretty crowded, and I knew the chances of finding her there were slim. Then, I noticed a restroom on one side, closer to the back wall. I searched all around, scanning left and right, looking for any sign of her. Despite my efforts, she remained elusive. After finishing my business, I settled near the corridor entrance and once again scanned the room. It seemed medieval, finding. It was hard to believe, but she was in a place with a lot of people. Then, I heard a quiet laugh that sounded like hers. I looked around, but I couldn't see anything because of the tall booths. I could only see a few people's faces. They didn't seem interested in talking to anyone. I didn't want to go up to any of the tables, because I didn't want her to see me. I started to walk away, looking at the wall. I slowly walked to the third table from the corner where I was standing. There, I saw her in a booth. There she was, chatting with some guy I didn't know. She looked stunning, wearing the same classy dress she always wore on nights out dancing. They seemed relaxed, like they were totally comfortable with each other. I couldn't help but wonder what was going on between them. It seemed way more intimate than a typical work dinner. My heart was pounding as he leaned in closer to her, and I instinctively grabbed the doorframe for support. Their lips met in a tender kiss. I was in a state of mixed emotions, so I decided to leave the doorway and move to the center of the hall. I sank into one of the padded chairs with a high backrest. Time seemed to blur. I sat there, never taking my eyes off their table. Suddenly, I heard her laughter again, and it drew my attention. I turned my head, and I saw her walking beside him, holding his hand tightly with both of hers. Their closeness, along with the general heat, piqued my curiosity. They strolled past me, just 15 feet away. Even though they conversed, my focus was solely on the adoring expression she had on her face she was wearing as she looked at him. I hadn't seen that kind of smitten expression in a long time. My breath caught in my throat, and I was momentarily speechless. I went to the exit, looking a bit annoyed. I walked straight to the sidewalk, determined. I couldn't take my eyes off them. She held his arm and leaned against him. I watched as they walked down the street, eventually turning a corner and going into a restaurant I had noticed earlier. I snapped out of it. I was on my way out the door, but then I stopped and took a second to notice my surroundings. I figured I'd better slow down and give them some room to get away from the entrance. I stopped, took a few deep breaths, and tried to chill out. I mean, there was definite meaning behind the looks on their faces, but I wanted more than that. I gathered my courage, pushed the door open, and went in, staying close to the wall since the entrance was. I hurried to the door, but then I stopped and took a few deep breaths to calm down. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but I wanted to know more. I pushed the door open and went in, staying close to the wall because the entrance was. I stood there for a minute, looking around. I saw them sitting at a table for two at the far end. I went over to them, holding the walls with my hands as I sat down at the table. The waitress came right away. "What can I get for you, sweetie?" she asked. "What would you like?" I replied, "I'll have a double scotch on the rocks, please." I heard them talking about our meeting tomorrow at 10, he told Kate in a low voice. "I'm glad you didn't let him trick you into going home. We wouldn't have missed our 2-month anniversary for anything." "I can't believe it's been 2 months, she exclaimed, and he remarked, "If only you had accepted my offer at the end of my first week at work." He reminisced, she laughed, and added, "I had to play the innocent girl with you, considering that I'm supposedly married." She shook her head in disbelief, recalling the moment when he. "Can you believe it's been 2 months?" she exclaimed. "It could have been longer." "If only you had accepted my offer at the end of my first week at work," he reminisced. "I had to play the innocent girl with you, considering that I'm supposedly married," she laughed. "I can't believe it," she said, recalling the moment when he approached her in the presence of Marge and asked her out, fully aware of his marital status. "Marge actually told me that you liked me," he mentioned. "We should do something nice for her because she played a significant role in bringing us together," Kate suggested. As the waitress approached and served their drinks, Swift walked away, raising their glasses. They raised their glasses in. I went up to her and asked her out, knowing she was married. "Marge told me that she liked me. I said we should do something nice for her because she played a big role in bringing us together." Kate suggested that the waitress bring their drinks, and Swift walked away. They raised their glasses to the incredible 2 months they had spent together and the many more to come. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said as their glasses clinked together. "There will be many more," she replied cheerfully. The waitress put my glass in front of me and asked, "Here you go, dear. Is that all?" I handed her a $10 bill and said, "Thank you, ma'am," before shifting my attention back. "Here's to the last 2 months and the many more to come," I said, raising my glass. "There'll be plenty more," she replied, smiling. The waitress put my glass in front of me and asked, "Here you go, dear. Is that all?" I handed her a $10 bill and said, "Thank you, ma'am," before I looked back at the table next to us. They glanced up, but since they were strangers, my presence didn't seem important to them. Kate noticed my glance and turned to look at me. "You know, a guy should always carry a camera with him for moments like this," I said. "You're so right," she replied. "This is perfect for a poster." She sat with her lips moving soundlessly. Wow, 2 months. This is a special anniversary. I still remember mine, but after 11 years, it starts to lose its luster. Watching them both, I found myself saying, let's celebrate 2 months. It's a symbol of passion and prosperity, isn't it? Well, a lovely couple like you definitely deserves a gift, so here's my offer, I said, tossing the ring in Kate's direction. And here's a surprise. Paul interrupted Kate with a loud, I still remember mine, but after 11 years, it starts to lose its luster. Watching them both, I found myself saying, let's celebrate 2 months. It's a symbol of passion and prosperity, right? A lovely couple like you definitely deserves a gift. So here's my offer, I tossed the ring in Kate's direction and said, here's a surprise. Paul interrupted Kate with a loud outburst, realizing that staying here any longer would lead to trouble. I turned to Kate, who was trying to calm him down. I said, tell him how lucky he is that he wasn't in my home. Please contact me and let me know where you'd like to receive your belongings. If you're wise, you'll avoid coming to my house. Applying ice to your nose might reduce the discomfort. I turned around. I realized that staying here would lead to trouble, so I turned to Kate, who was trying to calm him down, and said, tell him how lucky he is that he wasn't in my home. Please contact me and let me know where you'd like to receive your belongings. If you're smart, you'll avoid coming to my house. Applying ice to your nose might reduce the discomfort, I stated, turned around, and left the club. I walked briskly back to the hotel. It was unlikely that Kate knew my current address, and given my actions toward her friend, it seemed unlikely that she would pursue me. I quickly rushed into the lobby and approached the front desk. I politely asked, excuse me. Do you happen to have the contact numbers for airlines? I hurried back to the hotel. It was unlikely that Kate knew my current address, and given what I'd done to her friend, it seemed unlikely that she'd come after me. I rushed into the lobby and asked the front desk person, excuse me. Do you have the contact numbers for airlines? I urgently need to book a plane ticket. The employee inquired, certainly, sir. May I inquire about your preferred airline, as well as your desired departure time and destination? After I gave all the necessary information, she assured me that she'd inform me about the flight details in my room. Back in the room, I began to pace back and forth, bewildered by the unfolding events. How could this have happened? Then I had a thought, maybe Kate had missed her true calling in life. As my frustration continued to mount, I realized I couldn't stay in the room any longer. Grabbing my bag, I hurried down the stairs to the lobby. When I got there, the receptionist, who had just finished a phone call, motioned for me to come in. I thought to myself, how could this have happened? Then I had an idea. Maybe Kate had missed her true calling in life. As my frustration continued to mount, I realized I couldn't stay in the room any longer. Grabbing my bag, I hurried down the stairs to the lobby. When I got there, the receptionist, who had just finished a phone call, motioned for me to approach. Sir, if you leave now, you might make the last flight today. Registration closes in 30 minutes. If you miss it, the next flight is in 3 hours, she told me. I thanked her, hoping the taxi drivers in the area were reliable. I signed the cash receipt handed to me by a woman. I'm sorry, I have to cut my visit short. Please stay with us next time, she said, smiling. I told her I'd approach sir. If you leave now, you might make the last flight today. Registration closes in 30 minutes. If you miss it, the next flight is in 3 hours. I thanked her, hoping the taxi drivers in the area were reliable. I signed the cash receipt a woman gave me. I'm sorry, I have to cut my visit short. Please stay with us next time, she said, smiling warmly as I headed for the exit. A rush of unforgettable memories washed over me. Rushing out of the lobby, I quickly grabbed a taxi from the nearby parking lot. I asked, I bet you $50. You can get me to the airport in under 30 minutes. As I took my seat, the taxi driver responded, you got it, boss. Snapping me back to reality, he turned out to be experienced and got me to my destination. In just 20 minutes, I paid the meter. Fare added a generous $150 tip, expressed my gratitude, and hurried to the exit. Reflecting on it later, I realized there was no need to worry. I had a few minutes to spare after passing security. I eagerly awaited the announcement of the boarding. Unlike last time when I needed music to occupy my mind with plenty of distractions around, I paid the fare and added a $150 tip. I said thanks and hurried to the exit. Later, I realized there was no need to worry. I had a few minutes to spare after passing security. I was eager for the announcement of the boarding. Unlike last time, when I needed music to occupy my mind, there were plenty of distractions around. I had a funny thought, and I had to suppress a laugh. I remembered that Kate's mother never really liked me, while Deborah seemed to have her husband under her thumb. She treated Greg poorly, almost like he didn't matter. But I couldn't tolerate her behavior, and she was aware of it. One day, she even accused me of eventually cheating on Kate, claiming she saw me. I had a funny thought, and I couldn't help but laugh. I remembered that Kate's mom never really liked me, while Deborah seemed to have her husband under her thumb. She treated Greg poorly, almost like he didn't matter, but I couldn't tolerate her behavior, and she was aware of it. One day, she even accused me of cheating on Kate, claiming she saw me looking at other women when we were together throughout the entire flight. I had doubts about what was happening. I pulled out the photo I always carried with me of Kate and me and studied it intently. The person next to Kate in the photo suddenly seemed unfamiliar. I glanced around to make sure no one noticed, then returned my gaze to the photo. I couldn't help but wonder about the close secrets we'd whispered in the dark. I thought about how the man had shown interest in her from the first week they met, but she claimed she'd rejected his advances to maintain her appearance due to her marriage. The thought of them being together bothered me. I formulated a 2. I glanced at the photo I always carried with me of Kate and me and studied it intently. The person next to Kate in the photo suddenly seemed unfamiliar. I glanced around to make sure no one noticed, then returned my gaze to the photo. I stood beside Kate, but what caught my attention was the way she gazed into his eyes. It made me doubt. Although men aren't typically known for their memory, I considered myself an exception. Like most women, Kate often tested my memory by asking, "Do you remember this?" or "Do you remember that?" Unfortunately for her, I remembered everything. I recalled every conversation, every plan, and all. The close secrets we whispered in the dark, sitting there now. I couldn't help but wonder if I hadn't noticed this unfolding for 2 months, what else had I missed? The man had shown interest in her from the first week they met, but she claimed she rejected his advances to maintain her appearance due to her marriage. The thought of them being together bothered me. I formulated a 2. I had a plan. I'd go home, pack all her things, and take them to her mom. The old lady would find a way to blame me, but the truth is what I saw when we arrived at the airport: our family life was unraveling. I headed straight to my car and joined the exit queue. The drive home. I don't remember much about what happened after that, other than that I felt like my family life was falling apart. I got to my mom's house, and I was in such a state of shock that I couldn't even remember how long we'd been driving. I got out of the car and went into the house, which was totally dark. I had this weird feeling like I didn't know the place anymore, like it was going to be my new reality. I was in a state of disorientation, to say the least. I made it to my destination, but the details of the journey were a bit hazy. When I stepped into the dimly lit house, I felt a strange sense of unease. I couldn't shake this feeling that I had to adjust to this new environment. After dropping my bag, I made my way to the kitchen. Instinctively, I hit the answering machine. A pleading voice on the other end said, "Dan, please don't do anything rash. I am heading home to talk. Please wait until I get there." The voice sounded distressed, and it was clear she was trying to convey her emotions. I felt a sense of guilt, and I was consumed by the situation. After dropping my bag, I headed for the kitchen on Route I. Instinctively, I turned on the answering machine. A pleading voice on the other end said, "Dan, please don't do anything rash. I'm heading home to talk. Please wait until I get there." She sounded pained, conveying her emotions. I felt the cheater deserved punishment, but I didn't want to hear it, especially not in that voice. So I reacted impulsively and banged my fist. My actions may have been rash, but I needed to protect myself from foolish decisions. It was clear I wouldn't be able to sleep that night. I went to the garage and I gathered all the suitcases she had collected over the years, picking out a large black suitcase and a bag for her clothes. I set them aside and took the rest to the bedroom. As I sifted through her closet, I carefully picked out a few items and quickly stuffed them into one of the large bags. Repeating, I gathered all the suitcases I had collected over the years, picking out a large black suitcase and a bag for her clothes. I set them aside and took the rest to the bedroom. As I sifted through her closet, I carefully picked out a few items and quickly stuffed them into one of the large bags, repeating the process several times before turning my attention to the dresser. It had been ages since I'd seen underwear tucked in there. For a fleeting moment, I thought about grabbing some hot dogs. I was supposed to go to her mother's house, but I didn't want to, so I decided to go on my own. Gathering with lox and marshmallows, I didn't want to deal with her parents or anyone else, so I took matters into my own hands. Instead of waiting for her, I impulsively went to the hardware store to buy new locks. Upon returning home, I realized I couldn't leave a pile of stuff in the front room. Following my thoughts, I loaded everything into the car and headed to her mom's house. I drove carefully and unloaded everything near the garage, not wanting to burden Greg with extra work, especially since his wife and daughter wouldn't help him. As the third box fell to the ground, my mother-in-law appeared. "What's going on?" she asked. I explained, "Well, when Kate arrives, she might need her clothes." I thought she'd bring them herself, but I couldn't wait any longer. They were cluttering the front room. Confused and pale, she inquired, "What do you mean? Deborah, what's up with all this? What's going on?" she asked, her voice shaking with emotion. I explained, "Well, when Kate gets here, she might need her clothes." I thought she'd bring them herself, but I couldn't wait any longer. They were taking up space in the front room. Confused and with a pale face, she asked, "What do you mean? When Kate gets here, I thought she wasn't in town yet. Why would her things be here?" I'm not entirely sure how she plans to sort things out, but I assumed she might stay with you temporarily. She may be considering moving in with the person she's been spending time with, but I can't say for sure. That's why I brought her stuff, and I explained. She got really pale, and she started yelling at me. She said I was accusing her daughter of cheating, and that she had to stay there for work and she'd never do that to me. Her voice was all shaky, and she was getting really emotional. I even saw them together last time, and they looked happy. They were celebrating there too. I told her what I thought, and her face got all pale. She said, "What are you implying? How can you accuse my daughter of such things? She had to stay there for work. She'd never cheat on you." Her voice was all shaky, like she was about to cry. I even saw them together last time, and they looked happy. They were celebrating their 2-month anniversary at a fun nightclub near their hotel. I asked her to come home with me for our anniversary, and she said she couldn't. I flew to be with her, but when I got there, they were having dinner together. It was romantic, and I didn't want to bother them. Besides, I saw them kissing, and I needed some time to gather my thoughts. When they passed me in the hotel lobby, I thought about saying something, but she looked at him and whispered in his ear. At that moment, I couldn't bring myself to disrupt them. I just needed some fresh air, so I stepped outside. To my surprise, they left and headed to the nearest nightclub. I sat at a table nearby and overheard her saying she didn't want to leave him on their 2-month anniversary. I thought about saying something when they passed me in the hotel lobby, but she looked at him and whispered in his ear. I couldn't bring myself to disrupt them either. I just needed some fresh air, so I stepped outside. To my surprise, they left and headed to the nearest nightclub. I sat at a nearby table and overheard her saying she didn't want to leave him on their 2-month anniversary, and he corrected her, saying it was their 3rd month. I realized that if I wanted to leave, I'd have to intervene. I tried to stay inconspicuous, but I knew I had to find evidence. After 10 years of sobriety, I took my first sip of my drink. It had been 10 years since Kate expressed concern about my drinking, which she believed it was her 30th month with him, and he corrected her, saying it was their 3rd. I realized that if I wanted to leave, I'd have to get involved. I tried to stay inconspicuous, but I knew I had to find evidence. After 10 years of sobriety, I took my first sip of alcohol. It had been 10 years since Kate expressed concern about my drinking, which she believed could jeopardize our marriage. In response, I gave her my wedding ring, thinking it was a sensible gesture to give each of them something of their own, but honestly, I preferred his gift over mine. Now, as I awaited her return and the inevitable dramatic confrontation, I was sure she'd seek shelter at my doorstep for a while. I stated this to shock her, but I was wrong. You're lying. How could you say such things about your wife, who you've been with for 11 years? She's told me everything. She's deeply troubled by it. I'll never refer to this woman as my wife again. You might feel obligated to support her because she's your daughter, but I have no such obligations. I witnessed everything firsthand, and I've been living alone for the past 2 months, while she's been living with him since he joined the company. It's wild to see how she's changed, given the upbringing you provided. She looked me in the eye for 3 months straight, lying to me every day, without a hint of remorse. If you think I'll allow her back into my home, then you're even more mistaken. She's been lying to me every day for 3 months straight, and she hasn't shown any remorse. If you think I'll let her back into my home, you're even more foolish than she is. It's your choice what to believe, and that's your issue. I've chosen to cut my losses. It's clear that she has strong feelings for this guy, and he's free to have her. She won't need to hide their relationship anymore. As soon as she's done with her charade, I'll direct her to this place you can see for yourself. Who's being dishonest? As I said, I told her if she picks up, be sure to convey the message exactly as you want, including the fact that I'm eager to see how she handles this. With those words, I got into the car and drove away. I felt restless, so I wandered around the house for several hours before finding a small corner in the I told her that if she picked up, she should convey the message exactly as I wanted, including the fact that I'm eager to see how she handles it. With those words, I got into the car and drove away, feeling restless. I wandered around the house for several hours before finding a small corner in the garage where I set up an improvised workspace. Suddenly, my thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the doorbell. Curiosity got the better of me, and I went to the door and opened it carefully without saying a word. I instinctively took a step back. Kate entered the room, and I immediately realized I was in the garage. You must have been in the... I was in the garage, setting up a makeshift workspace, when the doorbell rang. Curiosity got the better of me, and I went to the door and opened it. I didn't say a word. Instinctively, I took a step back. Kate entered the room, and I immediately realized I was in the garage. You must have been in the garage, she remarked, closing the door behind her. I tried knocking, but you didn't hear me. I was just tidying up, I responded, observing the room's condition. Well, Mom already called me, Kate sighed. It looks like you've already made up your mind about what to do with me. Kate looked at me, her face a mix of sadness and disappointment. What did you expect, that I wouldn't mind you having an affair? I asked her. She paused before responding. I guess I wasn't thinking clearly. I was overwhelmed by disappointment. It's a shame, because all I did was think. I confessed. You see, there was no one around to distract me from my thoughts. I missed having someone to go out to dinner with. I told her I wouldn't mind if she had an affair. She paused for a second before answering. I guess I wasn't thinking straight. I was pretty disappointed, to be honest. It's too bad because all I did was think. I confessed, you see. There was no one around to distract me from my thoughts. I missed having someone to go out to dinner with, to visit a club and enjoy the darkness, whispering, and kissing. But I was left with a woman who could deceive me without hesitation. She could share my house, my food, my life, and then be close with someone else. Not a pleasant image, right? Are you really ready to let go of 11 years of our life together? What? So, is it her? Did you even ask me about it? Dan, would it have bothered you if I had a real relationship with someone else instead of just playing games? I thought that such an important question would stay with me, but it doesn't seem to matter anymore, does it? Now you, and the person whose name I can't even remember, can move on freely. Is it her? Did you even ask me about it, Dan? Would it have bothered you if I had a real relationship with someone else instead of just playing games? I thought that such an important question would stay with me, but it doesn't seem to matter anymore, does it now? You, and the person whose name I can't even remember, can move on freely without caring about me anymore. No more struggles over deciding whom to spend our anniversary with. I said, heading for a chair. I think I understand your perspective, Kate. Do you truly understand, Kate, because I genuinely doubt that you do? You see, for you it was just an act of infidelity. You probably found a way to justify it, maybe even shifting. Without caring about me anymore, you didn't think twice about who to spend our anniversary with. I said, heading for a chair. I think I understand your perspective. Do you truly understand, Kate? I asked, doubtful that she did. You see, for you, it was just an act of infidelity. You probably found a way to justify it, maybe even shifting the blame to me. Could it have been me, Kate? I asked. Perhaps my actions drove you to be involved with someone else, she replied. No, I don't blame you for this. It just happened. Having an affair with someone other than a spouse for 2 months isn't an accident. It takes effort and, moreover, secrecy to continue the affair. So, it's my fault? I'm the one who deserves all the blame? I asked her, Kate, did I do something that made you want to be with someone else? She lowered her head and replied, no, I don't blame you for this. It just happened. Having an affair with someone other than a spouse for 2 months isn't an accident. It takes effort, and, moreover, secrecy to continue the affair requires additional effort. I told her, honey, you're playing the role well. I fell in love completely and unconditionally. It's unbelievable that you both managed to find time for your game. I can't even imagine how it feels to laugh about cheating on me, and that tearful phone call last night. It was a real performance. Maybe you should. You should consider a new career, because your performance could easily outshine the last 3 Oscar winners. I must admit that I had a brief moment of uncontrollable laughter, an unintended outburst, before I stopped it. I don't know where it came from, but it's clear that you don't love me if you're treating someone you love that way. Please spare me your anger. Hey, I'm just wondering, how can you think I don't love you after 11 years? She protested, indignant. Listen, Kate, since you seem to enjoy asking questions, I've got one for you. Given your deep introspection, you know how you usually react to various situations. Based on this, imagine that I found out you had a one-night stand with another man. Time occurrence, not a long-term thing. How would you react if you found out I had a one-time fling with someone else? I asked. She leaned toward me and replied in a soft tone, to be honest, I think I would have asked you to leave our house and start divorce proceedings. I thanked her for her honesty and admitted that I had expected such a reaction. I even imagined that she might throw something at me. But who knows, I mused aloud. She responded with a. I asked, what if I said I'm not looking for something long-term? How do you think I'd react? She leaned in and replied, to be honest, I think I'd ask you to leave our house and start the divorce process. I thanked her for her honesty and admitted that I'd expected that reaction, even imagining that she might throw something at me. But who knows, I added. She smiled faintly. Imagine that for nearly 3 months, every day we spent together meant nothing to me. It was all just an act, a facade, to deceive you into thinking our relationship was thriving. In reality, I was going through the motions while my heart belonged to someone else. Spending entire days with my mistress after leaving you, can you honestly believe that I love you? You're barely smiling, and now you're saying that for almost 3 months, every day we spent together meant nothing to me? It was all just an act, a facade, to make you think our relationship was doing well? I was just going through the motions while my heart belonged to someone else, spending entire days with my mistress after leaving you. Can you honestly believe that I love you? After nearly 13 years, show me some confidence, Kate. I said, seriously, it's as if you don't care about this situation. The time we spent together was very valuable to me. It wasn't just casual conversation. I genuinely enjoyed being with you. She said, do you recall the last time we were close, Kate? When was the last time you initiated one of our affectionate kisses? When was the last time you acted like my wife? After everything I've seen and heard, I have a hard time believing you're standing here telling me you love me. I am not naive. I overheard you talking about him with that gossip, March, as soon as he got to the office, and then, to top it off, you both came up with the idea of giving her a gift for bringing you two together. It seems like when was the last time you acted like my wife, Kate? After what I've seen and heard, I have a hard time believing you're standing here and telling me you love me. I'm not naive. I overheard you talking about him with that gossip, March, as soon as he got to the office, and then, to top it off, you both came up with the idea of giving her a gift for bringing you two together. It seems like you've already found your next bridesmaid. All that's left is to find his best man, and the wedding banquet will be ready, I commented, reclining in my chair, So it turns out you're just like me after all. Should I expect a server to show up at my doorstep? Kate inquired. What is it, she asked first and foremost. I need to know where you're going to live. You won't find a process server waiting. I'm not going to find a process server on your doorstep to deliver the divorce papers. I've reserved that privilege for myself. That's it. The case is closed. Escape from Kate and move forward. If you happen to see me with someone else, please don't try to intervene. I said, what are you trying to prove with this? Kate asked. I probably didn't think I needed to prove anything to you. What I did for myself, not for you. I'm not going to fight for a man like you. People who didn't respect me much thought I'd put up with the way you treated me when I gave you the ring. That was a clear sign that you were done. I don't want to invest my energy in something that no longer matters to either of you, as I can't forget or forgive, and based on your past and present behavior, it's clear that. Why would I stick around for a guy like you? Those who didn't respect me much thought I'd put up with the way you treated me when I gave you the ring. It was obvious you were done. I don't want to waste my energy on something that doesn't matter anymore. I can't forget or forgive, and based on your past and present behavior, it's clear you're not a priority for me. So it's time for me to leave you, Kate, and move on. I don't pretend to understand how you expected everything to end, but you definitely ruined everything. Now it's your turn to sleep at his place. I said, locking eyes with her. You're kicking me out and keeping everything for yourself? To be honest, it seems unfair after 11 years. She replied. It always comes down to a deal, doesn't it? Well, that's settled. If you need. It's a house, so you'll have to pay for it. As for me, I want to keep the house I fell in love with. With the extra space I can finally transform into what I truly desire. I assumed you and Bast had already found a place. I said his name is Paul. She corrected, saying she didn't care about that. I asked, do you think he has nowhere to live? She responded, well, of course he does. I replied, in that case, problem solved. I added, I was waiting for. So, you're saying you want to keep the house? I mean, I love it here, and I've got all this extra space I can finally do whatever I want with. I figured you and Bast had already found a place by now, is that right? Yeah, his name's Paul. I don't care. But seriously, do you think he's homeless or something? Well, duh. He's got a place, right? So, you're saying you're cool with this plan, then? Yeah, I was waiting for you to say that. Wait, did you actually find out everything about him? How'd you know he was married? Kate, seriously, you think I'm naive or something? Why else would you be here? So, what's the deal? He doesn't want to get divorced for you? I hope you haven't seriously thought about coming back. I've been thinking about this a lot. I mean, we were together for 11 years, and then you just suddenly weren't interested anymore. I guess it's up to you to decide, but I'm curious, what made you decide to end things? I mean, I thought we had a great time together, and I'm sure we could have if we'd just talked about it. I hope you don't mind me asking, but I'm curious to know if you're thinking about what I said about the ring. I hope you're not getting all worked up about it. I've been thinking about this question a lot. I thought about how our relationship had lasted 11 years, but then I realized that's over. You made the decision to end it. Let's remember the good times and hope for more in the future. Remember, when I gave you the ring, it was the end. Don't make excuses about our 11-year history. It didn't matter to you before, and it doesn't matter to me now. So, I'll use a set of legal documents to compensate for those 11 years. The house offer is still good. If you don't want to leave the house, you can come back and take whatever you want. It seems like you're ready to move on without any hesitation. Divorce me and go. You might be trying to get my sympathy, but I want to be clear that I'm moving on from someone I can't trust. I'm never going to trust you again after what you did. So, what's your plan? Do you want to keep the house for yourself? I asked. No, I don't want to keep this house. Give me a few days to find a new place, and I'll probably take most of the furniture. She replied, taking her hand out of her pocket. What should I do with this? She asked, handing me the ring. Do whatever you want with it. Oh, I have an idea. Why not use it as a towel ring? It would fit perfectly on your big toe. Given how you treated him, I might actually find a use for it. I said, okay, you know what? I could use some extra money. Maybe I'll pawn it. She warned, well, you won't get much for it. They buy these things by weight, and most likely, you won't even get $130. You can't buy a genuine gold ring for your finger for $130, but that's just my opinion. It's your ring, so do as you please with it. I said, turning toward the door, did you get all my stuff out of the closet? She asked, yes, I got everything, though I was a bit annoyed with the furniture. I'll give you a call in a few days. I have to admit that I didn't pack your things very neatly. I hope you still have clean, unwrinkled clothes after the trip. I commented, may I take a look? She asked, of course, don't be shy. You know where everything is. I said, noticing a slight frown on her face, and then I waited patiently as she inspected the room. I could hear her rummaging in the bedroom, then in the closet, and finally in the bathroom. A few minutes later, she returned downstairs hastily, packing cosmetics into a floral zip-up bag. You were thorough. You only missed a few things. I may have to call you when it's time to move, she said, smiling a bit. Of course I'd be happy to help, as long as it's not too close to me, I replied, smiling. I'll get up and open the door for you, I said, when you suggest going for a walk. I paused for a moment, thinking about her request, and then I had an idea. Wouldn't it be too much to ask you to run around instead? I asked. She gave me a serious look and said, kiss me on the spot. I replied, no way. I wouldn't dare kiss someone who knows where she's been. I closed the door behind me, and that was the end of our conversation. 3 months later, my lawyer filed all the necessary divorce documents, telling me to pick them up from his office on Monday. My schedule for the day included 2 stops, first at the lawyer's office, and then at my mother's. I had to go to the lawyer's office, and then to my mother-in-law's house. I wanted to get Kate's signature on the documents so she wouldn't have false hopes of reconciliation. After parking my car at her house, I stopped for a moment and looked at the familiar house. I thought about finishing this last task. It might take some time, but eventually I would find solace and quiet nights again. This chapter would finally be closed. I went to the front door and rang the doorbell. To my surprise, my mother-in-law answered. Law answered well. Kate asked, what brings you here? What's going on? I thought you had forgotten about us already. Not yet, I replied. Is Kate here? Yes, she's here. Come in, she replied, closing the door behind her. A few moments later, Kate entered the room. Kate, I'm here for you too. I'll sign these papers, and I'll file them tomorrow. Then, our divorce will be finalized. I just want it to be over. I don't think I've ever been good enough for you, have I? Do you seriously think I'll just stand by and watch your actions over the past few months? Sign these papers. I'll file them tomorrow, and then our divorce will be finalized. I just want it to be over. I explained, and Kate sighed. I don't think I've ever been good enough for you, have I? Do you seriously think I'll just stand by and watch your actions over the past few months? She briefly left the room, but soon returned with a pen in her hand as she hastily signed her name on the appropriate pages. I watched her movements carefully. When she finished, she forcefully placed the pen on the table and swiftly gathered everything into a manila envelope, ready for archiving. Free now, she said. Thank you for signing these. Take care of yourself and find happiness. Shifting her focus from me to herself, she added, Mom, you can come into the room. Congratulations to you as well. I replied before walking out the door. As I drove away, a wave of mixed emotions washed over me. I understood that this was the end of our relationship, and I had a feeling that life was about to change. Just a month later, our divorce was finalized, which meant a whole new life for us. After a while, I got some unexpected news from Kate's dad. He told me that after our divorce, Kate had asked Paul to leave his wife and marry her. But Paul made it clear to her that he couldn't do that. He said their relationship was just physical, and he didn't have romantic feelings for her. After that, it seemed like Kate had to accept that their relationship was over. She'll have to move on without me and without Paul, and learn from our past relationship. Kate's staying with her parents while she looks for a new job. She was fired from her last job, just like Paul, because of me. Her dad says she's unhappy. She's had a few run-ins, but they were either married men who only wanted casual relationships, or men with shady reputations. This led to Kate's mental health issues, and now she's in therapy.